the Sustaining Creativity podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Andrea Osvart, multi-award-winning European actress and coach for actors. Please enjoy Andrea Osvart. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity podcast. Today, I am here with Andrea Osvart, multi-award-winning European actress and a coach for actors. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Mari. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for saying yes to coming and chatting with me about creativity. I'm super excited.
Of course. Me too.
Well, before we get into our creativity conversation, if you could take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do.
Of course. Thank you so much for the opportunity. So I was born in Hungary in 1979. And so I was raised during communism in this so-called Eastern Bloc in Central Europe. And I always dreamt of becoming an actress, but that was not really a realistic dream. So as raising up and as becoming an adult, I realized Hungary was not the land of promises, of course. So I had to leave in order to pursue my dream and realize my dreams. So I first went to Italy when I was 24 years old, and that's where I lived for about 10 years. And that's where my acting career kind of took off. And I landed in leading parts in Italian movies because I also speak Italian.
Okay.
And after spending 10 years in Italy, I kind of wanted more and thought I was able to do more and become more international. So I moved to LA, where I've lived for about 3 years. And eventually after that, I decided to come back to Europe because I think I've missed it. And I can associate myself more with the European mentality. So now I live back home again in Budapest.
Nice. That's wonderful. I mean, such a journey, and I'm sure all of the creativity that went into following your dreams and all of that. Could you speak a little bit about the other piece that you do, the coaching for actors? I'm so curious about that.
Yeah. I sort of call myself sometimes, just for the fun of it, the alchemist, the novel by Paulo Coelho, because I need to do all this, other lives and go as far as I could in order to realize that if I come back home, I find my happiness right there. So yes, now I'm a coach. I'm an international coach for actors because yes, my journey was a little bit of out of the box and not typical, especially not for Eastern European or European actors. And so many actors came to me for advice that I started to just kind of coaching them like in my free time and trying to give them some knowledge about what I've learned and what I've experienced in these past 25 years in the international film industry, abroad, in Europe, and in America as well. And so many knowledge I accumulated, and I started to write blog posts and a little mini book that now it seems like it's becoming, my full-time activity. And actors are very grateful and very happy that there is somebody who would listen to them and help them navigate through this labyrinth of the acting business, which is unfortunately not only about creativity and the art of acting, the craft, but it also is a lot about the business side, which a lot of us, kind of would like to avoid and disregard. But there are shortcuts that, I can help. I can help with for artists to manage themselves.
Nice. I love that. I love that you're a resource for performers and actors specifically looking to navigate this very challenging world of film and television and all of that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So that's so wonderful. I too work with performers, but I work with many of them coming right out of college and or who are still in their university performers. So
yeah, strangely enough, like it's funny because I don't really, most of my clients are not total beginners, although there are some, but mainly I'm specializing in professional actors who've been around for a while and who've been in the industry already for quite some time, and they have different challenges. So I'm not necessarily trying to help them with how to create resumes or headshots, but more like in a psychological way of how to manage their team, how to manage their time, how to not become overwhelmed, how to keep their mental health, their sanity in this business, which is a challenge.
Yeah.
Because there's so much uncertainty and the constant standby that is so specific for our performer lifestyle that I think only those can relate who've been in their shoes before.
Absolutely. Makes a lot of sense. They're very lucky to have you to help navigate that world. Yeah.
Thank you.
So when you think about creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
For me, it means freedom, and it means to redefine myself over and over again and again, because I am also changing, maybe not day by day, but surely year by year. And what I used to enjoy before, maybe I don't enjoy anymore, today. So I always have to find myself new ways of expressing myself and dig out new methods and uncover and discover, new topics that excite me and spark joy in me. So for me, it means to be open and open-minded and just let the flow in.
I love it. I mean, I love kind of the rediscovering who you are aspects and freedom and flow and having all of those pieces, not be stagnant, but they are in constant motion. And, whether you discover that they're changing quickly or taking more time to change, it's a beautiful image.
Change is a big theme because change, my yoga teacher used to tell me, and I love this phrase, change is the only thing constant in life.
Exactly.
And I used to have it on my wall. And I think it's such a wise phrase that people usually don't like change because we have so little certainty and security in reality that we like to hold on to our illusions of being in control and have security and something stable. So we tend to avoid change and dislike change, but change is actually the opposite. Change is what allows us to discover and rediscover new things that helps us grow and develop as person and as a person or as personality as well. So I always encourage my actors, not to be afraid and just, find the courage or encourage them to jump into something new and try new things, because at the end of the day, they always turn out to be the best decisions.
I love that reminder. And you're speaking to creative resilience also in kind of trusting that change is constant and uncertainty is the status quo. If we want to continue to grow and change as people and performers, we have to trust in that unknown and take the chances.
And how boring it would be if we didn't change, and we would still be babies,
Right,
if we didn't
exactly.
change. So stuck for a lifetime in a baby body and a baby mind,
Oh yeah.
So I
No,
always
thank you.
remind myself as well of that, like, I'm not the same person as I used to be 10 years ago or 20
Yeah.
years ago. And that's good. And that's a
Mhm.
positive thing. I've changed, I've learned, I've experienced, I've grown.
Yeah.
So change is positive.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think change is super important. And when we stop changing is when life becomes really boring in my,
Life stops, sort
yeah,
of.
absolutely.
I think because everything becomes so stagnant, as you said.
Hmm.
So then we would not enjoy it anymore, I think, as artists.
Yeah, I agree. I imagine, in your experience as a performer and just working in the performing arts business, that you have come up against creative challenges. What are some of those challenges that you have come up against, and how do you face creative challenges?
Oh, well, as an actor, I think it's one of the most hardest jobs to deliver someone else's art through our persona, through our body, through our soul.
Mhm.
And sometimes it's the character that we are impersonating is not in alignment with our true selves, and their techniques and routine and experience and professionalism and all sort of things, but that don't always help creativity
Mhm.
because you have to deliver on a deadline and on a schedule something that is called art.
Right.
So it seems quite contradictive to me to, it's 9 a.m. Tuesday morning and you have to deliver art.
Mhm.
So some people don't even realize how difficult this job is. And we have to, I think the only or the most important thing that we can hold on to is the trust that you mentioned, that we just have to trust ourselves and our experience and our roots, that we are here for a reason. We
Mhm.
are here not by accident, and we are here by merit, and we do have what it takes to deliver this performance right here, right now.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we just end up stressing ourselves and make, come up with negative self-talks that is very counterproductive. So I'm teaching myself as well on how to relax and how to become more conscious about,
Mhm.
trusting the process.
Mm-hmm. Nice. You talk of the stress that comes up. Do you have any like go-to strategies to help manage your own experience of stress?
I do. It's hard to explain briefly, but I talk to myself before auditioning, for
Mhm.
example, and I repeat some lessons that I also teach. So
Mhm. Yeah.
so it's a sort of reminder for myself as well to how to deal with it and the coping mechanisms what to remind myself of my purpose and of my higher purpose sometimes, of what are the stakes of this audition,
Mm-hmm.
like what if it goes through, what if I get rejected, and worst case scenario, it's I'm not going to die, or it's not such a tragedy. So I always try to lower the stakes for myself before entering the room, because if I think this is the most important audition of my life, and oh my god, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, then I will surely mess up and deliver something that I would not be proud of.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot, like knowing yourself really well to have those strategies and that self-talk, to know that it's going to work, that it's the phrase I'm thinking of has completely escaped my mind, but that um, you know, sometimes when we're too positive, or we we can't believe what we're telling ourselves. So there has to be like some truth in it. And so you do really have to know yourself.
You have to know yourself, but you also have to build around yourself something that is a security net, which prevents you from falling or failing. Because even if the audition doesn't go well, or that casting call, don't succeed in, you still have other resources in life that you can rely on and back on. So it's very important for us artists to not to put everything on one card only, but to have multiple cards in the game. And this is what I like about coaching, that I help actors to discover their own resources and not to communicate or transmit that sort of desperate energy when they walk into a room or they have an important meeting with decision makers or a network decision makers. So a lot of times actors come through as desperate people and people pleasers, and that's in itself is counterproductive. So it's much, there is a way to calm yourself down and make your nerves calm down and help yourself know who you really are and feel that you know your worth, that it's safe to be yourself, and there is no judgment in who you are and what you do and how you deliver a performance. So that sense of confidence, when you walk into a room with that can already save your ass, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all of these pieces. They speak to me and very similar to things that I do with other people in terms of creativity and finding safety and trust and identity and integrity and all of those pieces that you're speaking of.
Which sounds quite abstract sometimes, but honestly, when we do these deep thoughts and maybe journaling, like little exercises that anybody can do by themselves, no need of anybody else for that, and they're so helpful and they're so useful during our journey, which is, I repeatedly say, it's so uncertain and full of ups and downs.
Absolutely. I'm so curious, being in the performing arts world, but what is your earliest memory of being creative?
Oh my gosh. I think I used to play in a school play, theater piece. And I played the dog of Dorothy in Oz.
Oh, I love it.
So maybe I was about 10 or 12 years old. So that was my first role when I could be someone else rather than myself. So that's my first memory that I can recall as acting.
Nice. I love it. I love asking people what it is because it's so varied. Some people are doing performing and other people are, writing books and things in their childhood and playing with crafts or all of that aspect. So I love that you were the dog in Oz for Dorothy. I love it. It's so great.
Yeah, funny.
Yeah. When you are, meeting or working with people in the performing arts world, how often do you come across people who don't feel creative?
It happens. It happens quite a lot that people, when the work dries out or they are in a transitioning period, or they are fed up with the industry dictated terms and all the very sometimes difficult conditions. It can happen that actors and artists get fed up and they just think about quitting, or they unfortunately use other methods to cope with this stress of being unemployed, for example. And unfortunately, coping mechanisms usually are like substance abuse or drugs and alcohol. But I just can't emphasize enough that there are other coping mechanisms as well, which I can help you actors with or artists with. that are much more helpful and much more healthy, and it would prevent from you going down the road and end up in a sort of a self-destructive process.
And it sounds like much more sustainable, the tools
absolutely.
that you're sharing.
Yes, because I understand also that actors are sensitive souls, and all artists, but we really have to remind ourselves that we are also responsible entities and individuals, and we are, first of all, responsible for ourselves, and from there we are responsible for our audience and for our fans and for family and friends and everybody else. But first, we are responsible for ourselves.
Absolutely. That's a great reminder for anyone, not just performers, but for everyone, that we are responsible for ourselves, that we do need to take care of our own self and our system so that we can reach out and help others.
Exactly. So thank you for saying that we not only can reach out, but we should. We must reach out when we need things are not in alignment with how we wish they would be, or when we feel like it's a downhill, or it's like a negative spiral that we went into. So there are more and more organizations that actually try to help workers in the entertainment industry with mental health issues, because statistics are terrifying, to be honest. We talk too little about this, but it's true. And of course, everybody tends to hide it and want to hide it. And nobody would like to be associated with the notion of being mentally challenged, because we are normal people. But what this business is doing to us, and what this industry and how far it's gotten, it would challenge anybody's nerves, let alone artists.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. I am a therapist and I work with performers, so I will talk about mental health all day.
Fantastic. Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not glad that performers need, but they do need, and everybody would need therapy, and it's so helpful.
It is, and so important. And I think you're right. The mental health is still a very taboo subject that people don't want to talk about, and really have a hard time admitting that they are asking for help or needing support in that arena, because there's so much stigma, and many people have lots of judgments around it. So the more we can normalize it, the better.
And there's so little knowledge around it, because people usually get to the point when it's kind of already too late, when they start thinking, maybe I need help, maybe I need support or therapy, because something has already happened. So my program is trying to help actors actually by structuring their times efficiently in order to prevent and avoid these things from happening.
So important. We need to have those safety nets, and we need to have that awareness so we can catch when things are getting more challenging before we get into a crisis situation.
And it's just like with physical health, we either pay for it before or after,
Absolutely.
We either go to the gym or to the yoga class and pay for that and prevent being ill or physically challenged, or we don't do it and then we pay the bill later on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for all of the listeners out there, take care of your mental health before you reach the crisis zone.
Yes. Free time and mental wellness is just part of life. You really have to dedicate time to yourself.
Absolutely. And it sounds like you really are, do that as well, to then share.
I've learned, of course, I've also learned on my own skin, because I wasn't a master of this before either. but I've learned on my own skin, and especially during COVID. The pandemic opened my eyes, and when I was out of work for 1.5 years, I started to read about performers' psychology, and I had all these aha moments, and then I started to write down my thoughts and helped myself through it, but it was hard.
Yeah, but amazing that you had those moments of recognition to say, oh, this is important. I need to do this work.
Because I have one thing that I've always had, and it's called willpower. Because I've decided that I'm not going to allow anybody else to derail me from my path, or I'm not going to allow anything or just to stop me from becoming who I want to become. And I made a promise. This is another method. For example, I made a promise to my younger self when I was 6 years old. And sometimes I still try to picture me as a young child and remind myself of that promise that I would take care of her and be there for her. So that helps me also to just stay focused and not to lose my mind.
I understand. And the resilience that you're creating by doing all of this is wonderful. Getting through a pandemic, the research that's coming out now about resilience and people who were resilient before the pandemic and how their resilience really grew during the pandemic, and people who struggled with resilience before really struggled in the pandemic space. So yeah, I love talking about it and hearing how people around the world are using it and transforming their lives.
And hopefully other people would also like to hear about this or hear about this more. And I offer also apart from my blog posts, I have a free ebook that people can download. And some people found it also very helpful and useful. And I have free newsletters. So I try to over deliver because I believe in giving. And then, eventually things will come back for sure.
Absolutely. Well, this has been just such a treat chatting with you. I just have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
It feels to be loose, loosen up. It's because I am such a rational person, by the way, that I always overstress myself and overthink things. And when I'm creative and when I'm in the flow, I, just time stops, and I'm not under stress. I'm not under pressure, and I feel at ease. So I just feel all my muscles get released, and even my voice and my entire being and self gets out of this cage of my self-imposed being or identity.
I love it. Oh, I can feel as you're talking what it is to be free and step out of that cage. And so thank you for sharing that. It's been so wonderful chatting. If people want to learn more about the work that you do, how could they go about doing that?
Through my website, it's very easy, andreaosvart.coach, and they can also book a free coaching session with me online. I have my calendar up there, or download my free ebook just to start with, or sign up for my newsletters, or read my blog posts, and let's take it from there. And I hope we can connect and, help each other.
Wonderful. I will put all of that in show notes so people have easy access to it. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. It's really been wonderful.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your work as well.
Thank you. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.